Good morning. Again, my name is Charles Cathlin, CEO of TruGenomix, the precision behavioral health company. And we have a vision of bringing mental and behavioral health into the 21st century. And our mission is to save lives and to reduce the stigma of behavioral health disorders such as PTSD through earlier, more effective diagnosis and treatment. I'm a veteran, served 23 years total between the Air Force and the U.S. Public Health Service. And this is a photo of me deploying to Ground Zero with the medical team. And we converted a bodega into a medical station for the volunteers and the first responders who were working down at Ground Zero. And I deployed as a preventive medicine officer for the team. And that event had a profound impact on me and my interest in behavioral health. And as you know, after that event, there were two wars that we were engaged in over the last 20 years. And the signature injuries of those wars have been post-traumatic stress disorder and PTSD and traumatic brain injury, which are known as the invisible wounds of war. So this is a photo of my friend Todd, who I met at Stanford University. And when he learned about what my company was working on, he told me about his story, which was the fact that he deployed to Afghanistan over 4 tours. And he went undiagnosed with PTSD for about 7 years. Got to the point where he had turned to alcohol and his marriage was falling apart. And when he finally chose to get some help, and once he got help, he began to turn his life around. And by his own admission, when he was at his lowest, the only thing he was qualified to do was dig ditches. Now, this guy was a special forces operator in Afghanistan, and the only thing he could do was dig ditches at that time. And again, he turned his life around and became an entrepreneur, and I met him at Stanford Business School. And one of the challenges that we see is that the current gold standard for behavioral health, particularly conditions like PTSD, are self-reporting surveys. And so that introduces several challenges. It introduces bias. How you respond to that survey may change depending on the day. And there's also a lot of stigma around our current practices with behavioral health, and everyone's symptoms are different. In fact, Todd is actually a success story because in our country, there are 22 veterans that commit suicide every day. That's almost 1 every hour, because largely in part because they just fall through cracks, they get missed. What we like to say is our current system lets people fall off the cliff, and then we have an ambulance waiting at the bottom of that cliff. Now, what if we had technology that would allow us to identify individuals way upstream and put some signs and barriers at the top of that cliff? And I also would like to say that PTSD is not just a veteran issue. That has come to light because of the last year and a half with the COVID pandemic, and particularly first responders, essential frontline workers, and hospital workers, where we've seen increased rates in post-traumatic stress disorder. So now to our technology. So our company, we've licensed a patented test for post-traumatic stress disorder from Mount Sinai School of Medicine, which we're calling TruGen 1. And we took this IP and we actually expanded from 3 genes that are focused on PTSD and added another 1,000 genes that are correlated with other mental health conditions. So our company, we're laser focused on PTSD at the moment, but I want to emphasize that what we've built is a platform technology. We've also built a bioinformatics engine, which we're calling TruBase, which allows us to ingest the genomic information, analyze it, and apply AI and machine learning for predictive modeling and to generate a report for researchers in clinical use. And this is how our platform works. You get a blood sample, you sequence it, and you integrate it into our TruBase platform, and you're able to pull out actionable insights for the clinician and researcher and generate a report. So we believe through the power of genomics, this will again change behavioral health, bring it into the 21st century and allow for earlier identification for risk of developing conditions as PTSD, and also apply genomics and personalized medicine to the behavioral health space. And the thing that we're really excited about is that through the power of genomics and everything that we've learned through this technology, we can actually get down to the biological underpinnings of diseases like PTSD. So this is our market size, TAM of 64 billion. So very, very large market. Mental behavioral health is becoming much more in the conscious of people in light of the pandemic, as I mentioned before. And it was estimated by 2030, prior to COVID, that there would be a $6 trillion cost burden to society because of conditions like PTSD, 13 times greater than that of cancer. So where are we from a commercialization standpoint? We've actually recently closed 2 contracts with the Canadian military to do some, for research use only, to do some research looking at PTSD and other neuropsychiatric conditions within Canadian Special Forces. We're working with the U.S. Department of Defense right now, who provided us with about 600 PTSD blood samples to include in our studies. We've also established a collaborative research and development agreement with the VA, which we're working right now to get funded, hopefully through the VA, and perform a multi-site study on using our TruGen1 test. And we're also working with healthcare systems such as Sanford Health, and having initial conversations with Renown Health as well. This is our team. As I mentioned, I retired after 23 years of service. I also served as the Chief of Staff of the Defense and Veterans Brain Injury Center, where I managed about 300 people. And that was the position I retired from. I also served as the Chief of Neurology Devices at the FDA for, I was there for about 10 years before moving back to DOD. Our Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Anna Clario, 30-year Army physician who retired in 2019, served as Command Surgeon of the Army National Guard, served as Deputy Surgeon for the Army in Europe, and literally also wrote the book Women in Combat, because obviously conditions like PTSD and mental health impact them as well. In fact, women are twice as likely to get PTSD, and these are some of the things that we're looking at as a company as well with her help. And Dr. Tashaka Cunningham, who's my co-founder and Chief Scientific Officer, Princeton and Rockefeller graduate, spent about a decade at the VA as a scientist. He's a molecular biologist, and also did his postdoc at the National Institute of Health and had some time in pharma. And real quickly, our scientific advisors, Dr. Florian Holzbauer and Dr. Richard Yehuda, who are the inventors and who are been consulting and advising us as a company. Dr. Maheen Adamson, who I work with at the Defense Veterans Brain Injury Center. She's also works at the VA and at Stanford University as affiliate faculty. And then Dr. Parsabetti from the Broad Institute, who's also an investor in us. And a very quick sad story, her husband was a Marine and was suffering with PTSD for a number of years and ended up taking his own life on Christmas while she was pregnant. And so she learned about what we were doing and immediately invested in our company. Here are some of the strategic relationships I already mentioned. We've had investors, Viking Global, Stanford Health is an investor. Bluebee is the company we've partnered with to build our bioinformatics platform. They recently exited and sold their company to Illumina. Our company also has been through the Illumina Accelerator. So Illumina was one of the initial sort of investors in our company, and they're still a partner with us. And as I mentioned, we're working with some of these other partners like the Canadian Military, VA, and we're also working with the University of Maryland on a grant right now. So just to sort of summarize our milestones, we've raised 2.5 million, a little bit over that, in seed investment last year. We were also last year awarded a grant, and we're applying for other grants this year. And we established our partnerships with Stanford Health and the VA. And we also closed contracts with the Canadian military worth about 2.3 million. We've earned about 700K in revenue so far. And in fact, it's about 1 million now. So I need to update this slide. And we also submitted our pre-submission, 510K pre-submission package to the FDA. And so next year, we're preparing right now for our Series A raise and going after additional contracts. Thank you. Do you have any questions for me?
Thank you, Charles. That was an amazing presentation. Really appreciate it. Thank you for your service, and I'll open questions up. John.
Sure, thanks. Nice presentation, Charles. Any early results from your trials and your tests already that you've done? Any data that you can disclose?
Yeah, so one of the great things is that a lot of the, we were able to license the technology. So a lot of the upfront investments occurred actually from the VA, organizations like the VA, Mount Sinai, and Department of Defense, who founded a lot of the studies that contributed to the intellectual property that we were able to license. So what we've done right now is we're actually working with Stanford Health, on a validation. We just finished our analytical validation. And now we're transitioning to clinical validation as well on a patient population. We're hoping the VA will be that partner for that clinical validation. So in terms of data, we have the publications from the original founders in the technical documents in the patent. We're generating our own data right now, and we're working with the CRO currently at this moment, and very soon we'll have the data from the analytical validation that we could share.
Charles, what can you tell us about? I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Sorry about that, Cornelius. What can you tell us about other technologies out there that you would consider competition or other threats to your success?
Yeah, so there are quite a number of different types of technologies that are trying to work at this problem. Most of them, in my opinion, are still more sort of, I would say the foundation are still survey-based in terms of the identification. So, there are groups who are looking at things like medical devices, I should say, that would listen to your voice and how you're responding from an audible standpoint. And there's also other technologies that look at, sort of like your heart rhythms and things like that. But I think the thing that's unique about what we're doing is we're not just looking at the DNA, but we're looking specifically at your RNA, which is a level upstream, I would say downstream, I should say, from DNA. So we're looking at expression and not just the SNPs. For those who are familiar with DNA and RNA, and so that's very exciting because that also ties into to proteomics as well. And the platform we're building allows you to not only digest the DNA, RNA, and proteomic information into our platform, but from a very great multi-omics approach, because we don't think there's one piece of the equation that will sort of be the home run. We do think it's a sort of a multi-omics effort here. And so we're building out that platform. So I think we're the only ones that are really doing this laser focused on behavioral health. There are other companies that have been focused on oncology and cancer, we're laser focused on mental health.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Real quick, Cornelius.
Yeah, just a quick question. If you could, Charles, go back, great presentation. If you go back to the side with the technology, with the platform, that
Yep.
slide right quick, I just had a question around the collection piece.
Yes. Excuse me. Hold on a second. This is not it, but
The one, I guess.
yeah,
it's
I see it.
on-
Here we go. This
Yeah,
it?
just wanted to, yeah, that's it. So you said basically, just could you walk me just quickly just through the workflow? Individual goes into a clinical office, get a blood sample, process.
Yeah,
just that workflow a
absolutely.
little bit.
Yeah, so essentially, as of right now, the technology is based off of blood. We are looking at possibilities in saliva, but right now it's blood, and that's where we can actually extract. Have more success in extracting the RNA, and then once we extract the RNA and prepare it, we are able to run the test through our sequencers in our CLIA lab. And that's that. And as you know, a lot of information is generated when you sequence RNA or DNA, and so that information is fed into our bioinformatics platform, which we have a beta version of, and we're continuing to build out. And we've also partnered with an AI machine learning partner as well, who are building models for us at this moment, so that we can identify other discoverable insights from that DNA. But for right now, what we have, we can run our test and identify the expression of those three specific markers to PTSD, plus the other 1,000 markers that are associated with other mental health conditions. So, and we're reporting just on PTSD at the moment, but we're trying to build out the platform using PTSD as the first test case. I would say the beachhead. And then we'll sort of go from there. So that's sort of how it works. I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I have plenty more, but thank you so much for covering that.
No
I really
problem.
appreciate it.
We can follow up.
All right. Yeah,
Okay.
I do actually, Charles, I do have one follow-up question that I just sent you in the chat, and I'll relay that back to one of the judges, but we do need to move on. Great presentation.